Right, welcome everyone to the first video. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to do your memory sheet for the test. You're going to have the test sent out to you by the end of this week, so it'll be good to actually make our memory sheet. And don't forget, we can use loads of colours: green, purple, any other colour you want, but let's just make it colourful and make it interesting. So what I'm going to do is I sent out to you that sheet there, which says all that you need to learn. So I'm basically going to go through each stage now and then put some questions on here that relate to these statements so that you can then see what you need to do in order to answer these questions here. So the first thing, let's call it a memory sheet. Of course, you don't have to call it a memory sheet, but I'm going to call it a memory sheet. And the first thing it says is, I can evaluate powers without a calculator. So what are our powers? Let's remind ourselves what powers are. If I have something like 4 to the power of 3, this means 4 times 4 times 4. So I have the base. This is called the base. And this is the power. So I need to remind myself what that is. That's a key bit of knowledge. I also need to remember things like what the rules and laws. So here I want some of the laws. If I did 4 to the power of 3 times 4 to the power of 2, you remember what happens? Remember, we've got 4 times 4 times 4. Then we've got times 4 times 4. So effectively we've got 4, and what we do is we add the powers. So 3 plus 2 is 5. So that's how we leave it. We don't actually try and work it out. We just leave it like it is there. There are other rules that we need to remember. So I'm going to call this one rule 1. And then I can rule 2. So nice and neatly around this section here. Very similar to rule 1. Let's do 4 to the power of 7 divided by 4 to the power of 3. Remember, 4 to the power of 7 is 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. So 7 sets of 4 divided by 3 sets of 4. And remember, what we do is when we divide, we do the inverse of what we did with timesing, and that is we take away. So that becomes 7 to the power of 4. Let's have another rule. Rule 3. So this rule here is going to be 4 to the power of 3 all squared. Now what this means is we've got 4 times 4 times 4, and I'm squaring that, which means I'm doing 4 to the power of 3 times 4 to the power of 3. Very similar to rule 1. 4 to the power of 3 times 4 to the power of 3 means 3 times 2. So I times those two powers together, so that becomes 3 times 2 is 6. What happens when we have negatives? Okay, let's consider negatives. Let's now make it all nice and neat. So here I have 4 to the power of minus 2. Now this is called the reciprocal. We use that as our password for MyMath, so we should remember that. That minus means a 1 over. So let's look at just that minus, it means 1 over. And then I literally put 4 there. And because I know 4 squared is 16, sometimes you could leave it as an ordinary fraction. So I could leave it as 1 over 16. And I need to know other sort of rules. What happens? So here we go. What happens if I do with negative numbers? And you have to be very careful with negative numbers. So for instance, if I did minus 3 squared times minus 3 to the 3. So we just have to be very, very careful what we're doing here, because this can be very tricky. Remember, a minus times a minus is a plus. So when we're squaring it, this will become 9, a positive. But here, minus 3 times minus 3 times minus 3, that means a minus times a minus is a plus, times a minus is a minus. So in the end, I'll have a minus times a plus. That becomes a minus. It's quite complicated. Okay, the easy thing to remember is that if I've got an odd set here, remember I add them. Because that's an odd one, this will be minus here. Quite complicated, really.